So as Joe mentioned, we have a couple presentations today, three presenters combined, all kind of focused on the 35E corridor north of St. Paul. And the first presentation is going to be by Mike Martinez. Mike will present on the design elements of the Cayuga project located on, like we said, I-35E in St. Paul. Mike is an associate with HDR with over 17 years of experience as a traffic engineer. He leads the traffic group in HDR's Minneapolis office and is also HDR's North Central Regional Traffic Lead. Mike has been a member of NCITE since 1999 and is currently the section's vice president. Please welcome Mike.
Thanks, everyone. Happy to be here and talk about this project that was very near and dear to a lot of us in this room for many years. And let me just figure out the technology here and we'll get going. Perfect. All right. And we do have another presentation, so I promise to be brief and leave some of the caffeine from the coffee for the second presentation. Just going over the project the topic real quick, talk about the existing conditions, some of the reasons for the project, some of the benefits of it, talk a little bit about what the project team did, and a little bit more about timeline. I think most of you are probably familiar with the project, but in case you haven't ventured over to the east side of the cities, it's in St. Paul, just north of downtown St. Paul, just north of the system interchange with Interstate 94. It not only affected about a mile and a half of Interstate 35E itself, but a number of the local City of St. Paul roadways and some of the county roadways as well. And here you can kind of see there's a big element of crossing the Burlington Northern Railway as well. A little bit about the deficiencies in the existing system and some of the things that the project aimed to fix. A lot of traffic through this corridor, 150,000 vehicles per day, heavy AM and PM splits coming into town in the morning, and then the afternoon commute leaving town. The diagram over on the right kind of shows some of the weaving issues that were fixed by the project. The big blue arrows here show kind of the southbound 35E through movement, but all the smaller red arrows show that there is an exit onto the Pennsylvania Phelan roadway. Shortly thereafter, there is an exit onto University. Shortly thereafter, you have exits to eastbound 94, westbound 94, 52, City of St. Paul. So there's a lot of weaving back and forth to get into the appropriate lane, and then a lot of shifting off the system as people chose their destinations. One of the ones that I had firsthand experience with, and I'm sure many of you all had as well, is getting onto northbound 35E from Phelan. You exit that five-legged intersection at Phelan to get on the on-ramp going north, and you're chugging up the on-ramp, and right about the time you get to the Painted Gourd and get to be level with the freeway, you run out of acceleration lane, and I had the pleasure of dealing with a UPS trailer going, okay, one of us has got to go, and it's going to be me, so I'll let him take the through lane and sneak in behind him. So that was one of the things that was also fixed. Another big funding source for the project was the Chapter 152 bridge funding, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on too. And of course, with MnPass being introduced into the corridor with this current project that Brad and Maury will be talking about more, there's obviously no managed lane strategies in place at the time. And if you were on the Pennsylvania Phelan area and you're intending to go south on 35E or hit 94, you either had to kind of weave through the local roadway system or go north on 35E, do the U-turn at Maryland, and then come down and hit these exits that you were looking for. So the project aimed to fix a lot of that sort of thing. This just kind of gives an overview of those types of benefits. We talked about the bridges and the pavements that were ending their useful life. The interchange at Pennsylvania and Phelan was completely removed, and shifted, and a new interchange at Cayuga, a folded diamond at Cayuga Street, was introduced that provided full movements on and off of 35E. We also looked a lot at lane continuity approaching exits, and of course providing the safe acceleration and deceleration. We talked a little bit about improving the local access, having the full on and off movements from 35E, which helped a lot of the local businesses and neighborhoods in the area. Brad and Maury will talk more about MnPass. The other thing the project did is extended the Gateway Trail, which had previously ended at Cayuga Street, and we were able to take it a little bit further south and brought it down to University. The project originally had $116 million budgeted for it. I'm actually not real sure where the project is in that respect, but that's what we started out with. And the contract mechanism was design bid build. The project team had a lot to do both with preliminary design and final design. I'll focus on the preliminary design side of things and do a little bit specifically with the traffic side of things. We were teamed on the preliminary side with Cambridge Systematics, and we did quite a bit of forecasting using the cube. And I can't speak a whole lot to that because I'm on the design side of things. But we looked at a number of different scenarios, the existing conditions, of course, the 2015 opening year, and then the 2030 design year, as well as with and without MnPass. We had briefly looked at pretty in-depthly looked at a direct connection into St. Paul, which eventually fell out of the preferred alternative. Of course, we all know that MnPass stayed in, and to support the travel demand forecasting, there was quite a bit of synchro and core sim analysis completed, and there's a few more kind of the small tasks that were completed, the air quality, noise, so on and so forth. The diagram on your right over here shows that while the project was only a small blip north of that system interchange, the modeling limits that were looked at extended quite a bit north and south of the project. They included the entire MnPass corridor, at least at the time, and then went out in both directions on 94, on Trunk Highway 36, and on 694 as well. More preliminary design type stuff. What you see here is the staff approved layout for the Cayuga project. Our scope included preliminary design for the 12 bridges that were to be replaced, which included some pretty complex ones going over the Burlington Northern right at the Cayuga interchange. There's some funky shaped things with ramps that are attached to the curved bridges, and I won't even begin to get into talk about the bridge stuff because I'm a traffic guy. So if you have more interest in bridges, I'm sure our bridge guys would love to talk to you more about it. But also as a result of the change in access along 35E, we wrote the interstate access modification report. We actually ended up doing a second one for the widening of a bridge for the ramp that goes from southbound 35E to eastbound 94. So that also required a similar document for that. Also with the scope, we looked at the Maryland interchange from a preliminary design pretty heavily. At the time back that we were looking at this, there was some question about what the right solution for interchange configuration was. So our team looked at the diamond, which is what's shown here on the staff approved layout, and obviously the preferred alternative that got built. But as well as the single point urban interchange and the DDI. And the SPUI ended up falling out pretty quickly, and the diamond and the DDI ended up kind of rising to the top. One of the issues we had with the DDI is the closely spaced intersection off to the west here. That was tough to fit the crossover in and incorporate that intersection in. But then also Kevin Schwartz from MnDOT had done a lot of work with the traffic operations and found that we could get similar levels of service by using the standard diamond. So when it all shook out and the dust settled, we ended up going with the standard diamond. One of the unusual things with a design bid build project was how the construction staging was handled. We did not complete plan sheets of the staging. We looked at a number of different alternatives of, whether it was going to be a full closure or, keeping 1, 2, or 3 lanes open in each direction. And what ended up being our deliverable was a RID document that those of you that have worked on design builds often see. It's just a reference information document that was included to the contractor. The contractor hired their own consultant, which I believe was Alliant, to actually take it through construction. What HDR and our partners did was looked at a lot of fatal flaw analyses, pinch points. Can we realistically get this number of traffic through certain parts of the staging? And then, looked at the staging with a little bit more than just a conceptual level. As you can see on this excerpt here for stage 4, we're actually showing some traffic control devices to support the staging concept. Now, to get to the final design, where I personally was much more involved with, on your left, you'll see the project team it was a pretty good and diverse project team. But also we had a number of agency partners, with MnDOT being our client and the project owner. But City of St. Paul was heavily involved as well, as Cayuga was a city street. Lorient, which was also kind of the west frontage road sort of situation. Phelan Boulevard is a City of St. Paul street. And then the Ramsey County got involved as you go west on Pennsylvania. And then Maryland had some impacts early on where the county was involved. The DNR was involved because of the Gateway Trail. BNSF was, of course, very interested in the project because we were spanning a number of their rails. And then, the drainage aspect was a very important part of this as well. The overall final design scope had a lot of your traditional roadway and bridge and drainage, but of course the cool part of the project in my eyes, and yes, I'm very biased, was the traffic design, where we did all the signing and pavement marking for it. We split up the signals amongst the project team. The only part of the temporary traffic control that was actually sheeted and included in the final design plans was a temporary signal at Phelan Boulevard and Olive Street, and that was to facilitate the local traffic that was going to be detoured. And the through movement, instead of being through on Phelan Boulevard, was instead going to be routed up Olive Street and going to be turned onto Phelan. So the through movement was going to become a turn, and the temporary signal facilitated that movement. And then our teaming partner Jacobs had done the lighting for both the 35E corridor as well as the local street network in St. Paul. More project scope stuff that was maybe a little more unusual. It's becoming more and more a part of your typical MnDOT and other agency type projects, but we feel that this was kind of some of the beginnings of it in a lot of cases, where MnDOT, it's MnDOT's project, is the 35E project was MnDOT's project, and they're the face of the project, along with the other agency partners, St. Paul and Ramsey County. So HDR provided the logistical support for the meetings, drawings, but also helped devise talking points to take these complicated messages, technical messages, and translate them down to something that residents and business owners can say, okay, I get what you're doing to me, I get when you're doing it to me, and we can find a common way to kind of work through this. So that was HDR's role there. We used provided some electronic type documents, open house type stuff, and then other. Here you can, over the bottom, you can see we had a thing put together for the noise that was to be expected. Wrapping up the project here, so we can get to the other presentation. A little bit on timeline. Starting kind of at the top here in 2011. We were working on getting the Maryland staff-approved layouts completed, so that project could get built before the Cayuga construction began. Then we started design on the Cayuga project. You can see that in 2012, the Maryland Avenue project or interchange was reconstructed and put in place, and then the Cayuga project construction began. It was originally intended to be completed in 2015, but things didn't quite work out due to some asbestos that was found. So this is taken right from MnDOT's website here, and it shows that the project will be completed this spring or early summer. The only things left to wrap up are the ramps to and from southbound 35E off of Cayuga, a little bit more on the Lorien Street, which is kind of treated as a little bit of a frontage road to get traffic from Cayuga down to Pennsylvania and Phelan, and a little bit on Phelan and Pennsylvania itself. And that's all I've got for you tonight. I think in the interest of time, if there are maybe a question or two we can take right now, otherwise I think we'll roll right into our second presentation. All right, we're gonna roll.
All right, to talk about the MnPass part of the project, Maury, Luke, and Brad Larson of MnDOT will present on the new MnPass system, current and proposed MnPass corridors, and new MnPass features. Brad is with MnDOT's Metro District as the department's MnPass Policy and Planning Program Director. Brad has worked for MnDOT since 1996, primarily in the area of transportation policy, finance, and federal affairs. Prior to joining MnDOT, Brad spent several years practicing law in the private and public sectors. He has a law degree and a master's in public administration from Hamline University. Presenting with him will be Maury. Maury is with MnDOT's Metro District in the Regional Traffic Management Center as the MnPass Operations Engineer. Maury has worked for MnDOT since December 2014 in his current role after spending 14 and a half years with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. He has a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering from the University of Minnesota. Please welcome Maury and Brad.
Yeah, thank you, Jake, and thanks to the entire group. We really appreciate the opportunity to come talk about MnPass. And thanks to Mike as well, and HDR and the entire team that worked on the Cayuga project. That was a very challenging project from a number of perspectives, and it's really went well, I believe, out there, and is really going to be a great facility once everything is done. It's already a great facility. So this presentation that Maury and I are going to give here today was a presentation we recently gave to the Minnesota GuideStar board. It does assume a fairly high level of knowledge about MnPass, and if it's too high, I apologize for that, although this is a pretty knowledgeable group. I remembered when we decided to use this presentation for this group that I have spoken to you folks in the past, and I thought it was a little more recent, but when I went back and looked at the presentation, realized it was January 2013. So time does fly. 3 years ago. But when I last spoke to the group, I did talk more about the MnPass basics, what it is, how it works, why it's a key regional congestion strategy. And I'm not really going to touch on a lot of that here today. We did pass out the brochure, our new MnPass brochure, which provides some good basic information about what MnPass is and how it works. But by all means, if you have questions about those types of things, jump in and ask them. So I'm going to focus more on the MnPass system development, looking at giving an update on several of the MnPass corridors, where they're at. First talking about 35E, and then Maury's going to talk a little bit about some of the new features that we've implemented on the MnPass system, as well as a little bit about MnPass enforcement. So the MnPass lanes, as Mike mentioned, on 35E, the first phase of the lanes have opened now. November 30th is when they opened. Between Little Canada Road and the new Cayuga Street interchange. Phase 2 of the lanes will be under construction this next season and be open by the end of the year. This map, if you can see it at all, it does provide a little better view on where these lanes are located and the phasing of them. So the segment in green there between Little Cannon Road and Cayuga Street is where the lanes have currently opened. This is an additional lane in each direction through that segment. They operate very similarly to the typical MnPass lane on 394 and 35W. So they during peak rush hour periods, Monday through Friday, is when they're in MnPass operation and have MnPass restrictions. So during those times, transit buses, vehicles with 2 or more people in them, motorcycles can use the lanes for free. If you're a solo driver, you can also use the lane if you pay a fee. So these lanes through this segment then operate as MnPass Monday through Friday. Outside of those peak rush hour periods, they operate just essentially as general purpose lanes, regular lanes, open and free to all traffic. Phase 2 of the lanes in the corridor, the MnPass extension project, which should be let here in a couple of weeks, will be extending the northbound MnPass lane in the corridor just past County Road J in Lino Lakes through the 694 35E Commons area. We're not going to have any MnPass designation in that northbound direction. Southbound, the lane is going to be extended up to Highway 96, and through the Commons area there, we're actually going to be converting or designating the existing inside lane to a MnPass lane from 6 to 10 a.m. in the morning. The peak drive times in the corridor, it's a directional peak, so these lanes operate, southbound operates during the AM peak from 6 to 10 a.m. Northbound operates in the PM peak between 3 to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. Any questions about, I'm going to shift to some other corridors now. I was going to mention a little bit about how they're operating currently in the corridor. They've been operating well. They haven't had a lot of use, primarily because there hasn't been a lot of congestion in the corridor. These additional lanes plus the other improvements that Mike talked about have really, and the fact that it takes a while for traffic to come back to a corridor after a major construction project like this, have really, traffic's been flowing quite well out there. I'm not sure if this is anybody's corridor that they commute on a regular basis, but it's been working well out there. So less congestion, less demand for those MnPass lanes, but so far everything's been working well. I don't know, are there any questions about 35E MnPass lanes right now before I move on?
Not worried about congestion, wait a southbound. You said the congestion was down, maybe you answered my question.
Yeah. So yeah, that southbound, that conversion of the existing lane to a MnPass lane during the AM peak period through that Commons area. The whole approach through the Commons area came out of a recommendation from a recent study that we did called the 35E MnPass Extension Study. And that study found that both of these approaches, where you don't have any MnPass designation or where you convert the existing lane to MnPass during the peak period, both of them would operate pretty similarly. And so we don't really anticipate from this conversion, there will be additional traffic that gets pushed into the existing or the remaining general purpose lanes in the corridor, but we don't anticipate that it will be enough to cause any breakdowns in those existing lanes. But this is a very unique approach we're taking through this segment, something that hasn't been done around the country before with these high occupancy toll lanes like MnPass. So we're going to be evaluating it over about a 2-year period under real traffic conditions and really see how each of these approaches work in terms of traffic flow, in terms of user understandability, and those types of things. Yeah.
So I'll
cover that.
Yeah, Maury will talk about that. Enforcement is always a challenge out there on our MnPass lanes, but we've got a new approach that we're taking to several aspects of our enforcement that we're hoping will improve some things out there. So, I'll move on and talk briefly about some of these other corridors that will be expanding MnPass on the not too distant future. The first project, well, these first three projects all have funding for MnPass. The first one, the 35W South MnPass extension. So this is extending the MnPass lanes just south of Minneapolis. It's going to be part of the big 35W Lake Street Transit Access Project that's going to start construction at the end of 2017. It's going to extend the southbound MnPass lane between 46th Street and 26th Street. And then the northbound MnPass lane out there is currently what we call a price dynamic shoulder lane. It's going to convert that PDSL to just a regular MnPass lane through that segment. We also have another project that's right now nearing the end. It's in preliminary design and environmental process on 35W North between Highway 36 in Roseville and Lexington Avenue in Blaine. That project is will be adding a MnPass lane in each direction along that segment. Right now we have funding identified beginning in 2019, so construction could begin 2019 or earlier on that segment. We also have funding for adding MnPass lanes on I-94 between Minneapolis and St. Paul. That corridor currently is just beginning a big corridor study. Perhaps some of you have heard about it. It's going to be about a 2-year study. It's going to be looking at a lot of different things between the downtowns on I-94. A lot of preservation, a lot of asset management elements, but as well as really assessing the feasibility of adding MnPass lanes in this corridor. And so we'll see what the results of that study say. There is funding, though, for MnPass in 2021-22. Other corridors that don't yet have funding but are in study as well, that you could see MnPass coming to in the not too distant future. Highway 77 between Apple Valley and Bloomington, there was a study recently completed that recommended adding a northbound MnPass lane on 77 in that segment. We also have a study that's underway on 494 and Highway 62 between the MSP airport on the east and where these highways intersect on the west. Results from that study are anticipated 2016. That's looking at the feasibility of adding MnPass lanes in either or both of those corridors. We also have a study underway on Highway 169 between Shakopee and 394 Highway 55 area. And we have preliminary results anticipated there early 2017. Also looking at the feasibility of adding MnPass lanes in that corridor. And that's kind of a unique study as well because it's not only looking at MnPass, it's also looking at bus rapid transit in that corridor as well. And then we're also scoping an eastbound MnPass lane on Highway 36 between W and E up in the northern part. So that's all I have as far as a corridor update, MnPass system update. Before I turn it over to Maury, I do have to go to another meeting, so I wanted to just take any questions you might have on system planning, corridor development. So, yes.
On the slide, you note northbound MnPass lane on 77 and eastbound MnPass lane on 36. Can you give any insights as to why it's only one direction on each of those corridors?
Sure. For 77, there was a study done that looked at a few different options. It looked at a reversible MnPass lane option. It looked at adding a lane in both directions, and it looked at adding it in one direction. And the recommendations that came out of that analysis and study was that it really made the best sense to just go in the northbound direction for now. It was less expensive, obviously, than the others. There was not a lot of demand for the southbound lane. There is not a lot of congestion southbound through the corridor, and the thought was that just adding the lane northbound would solve a lot of the issues with congestion in the corridor, or provide that congestion-free option. It would also serve well to serve the red line BRT that runs in the corridor. They would actually be able to use that lane and benefit quite a bit from that lane, rather than using the bus shoulder that they currently use in the corridor. So that was the results of that. That's how the 77 recommendation came to be. Highway 36 came out of the broader MnPass System 2 study that was completed back in 2010 that really looked at both directions in the Highway 36 corridor. Westbound was considered to be too expensive to recommend anytime in the near term, and so it really recommended just that eastbound movement for now. And it's really what drives a lot of these projects. I think last time I spoke to this group, I talked about why MnPass is a regional congestion strategy, and the approach we take to MnPass is really kind of this low-cost, high-benefit approach, because there is so little money identified and available over the next 20 years for mobility and congestion type projects in the Twin Cities. We really have to try to focus the money on the lowest cost, highest benefit type solutions we can. So that's why it kind of results in these one directional type movements, which is a little, it's not the normal approach to these corridors. Any other questions on system, corridor? Not seeing any. I'll turn it over to Maury then to talk about some of the new MnPass features and enforcement. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. So.
Thanks, Brad, and thanks to the group for having us today. I'm going to, like Brad mentioned, I'm going to go over some of the new MnPass features as well as enforcement. It's a whole realm of new stuff for us just recently. So on 35E right now, some of the new MnPass features, we're using larger digital price signs. As you've probably seen the smaller price signs on W and 394. We've gone to a full matrix DMS now, and so 35E is complete. 394 will be overhauled this summer. So all the pricing signs on 394 will be changed over to these. 35W probably 2019-20 will be done. As well as we've got new tolling equipment on 35E as well as all the other corridors. We had an RFP go out early last year for new toll readers as well as our new back office system, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. The new tolling equipment that we've got now are transcore readers, and they're interoperable, which means that we'll be able to read other tags from other states. So hopefully within the not too far distant future, we'll start accepting other toll agencies' tags. Kind of jumping on that, there's a national interoperability requirement. MAP 21 required all electronic toll systems to become interoperable by October of 2016. That's probably going to get pushed out a little bit, but we wanted to be on the safe side and make sure we were good to go. Tolling industry is still hashing out what the national protocol will be. We're ready to act. Like I said, mentioned, our readers are now multi-protocol. We can read 2 to 3 different tag types depending on the device. The tags that we went with are from TransCore. They're SEGO tag, aka 6B protocol. Our new readers can also read our old transponders, which is ASTM V6. The ASTM V6, the reason why we went away from there, we had a 6 to 8 month lead time to get those for delivery on that. Plus that, let's see, that those style of readers were becoming obsolete. So we wanted to go with a new style reader. As I mentioned, nationwide interoperability. We're the lone yellow state for a long time. That was the ASTM V6. As you can see on the East Coast, Illinois and over is IAG. There's a few 6C states which are green. The SEGO tags that we got are 6B. So anywhere you see the 6B, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, not Tennessee, Kentucky, those states are all 6B. So that's what TransCore is hoping, that, you know, us becoming a SEGO state, you know, maybe, you know, they'll gain a little leverage. We were at a meeting late last year at the airport where they talked about their ITS stuff. Well, a couple people from our office decided to say, hey, you got the same readers as we do. Right, we're right now in talking to the airport regarding trying to merge MnPass with their parking system. For the airport employees, they have airport tags and using TransCore readers. We're able to see their tags, they're able to see our tags. So right now we're in talks of how we can become interoperable. So all you have to have is one tag in your windshield. If you want to go to the airport, park, you can park. You'll have an account through the airport, have an account through MnPass. It'll all be built, and it'll be built separately. Other things we're looking at too is tying into the ABC garages, which would make sense. We got 394, which is MnPass. ABC garages, the 394 leads right into the ABC garages. And one other aspect, we've heard U of M might be interested in piggybacking on too. Okay, some of the new MnPass features on the tags. Our old transponders were a little white square that clipped into a clip. Now we've got the new ones. We've got two types of tags, a switchable and a sticker. The switchable tag has a one-time purchase fee of $15. Can we move between vehicles? As you can see on the slide, there's that gray bar. You can switch either from MnPass, which you would be paying a fee, or slide it over to the HOV2 Plus if you have a carpooler. Same thing with that old transponder. You had to clip it out of your cradle if you were a carpooler. I think the switch is going to be a lot easier. The switch, also the difference between this and our old transponder, the old transponder had a battery which had about a 5-year life. So once that, battery depleted, people would have to bring in their old transponder, get a new one, and, there's no battery, it's all, everything is internal circuitry, don't need the battery. It'll be a lot better for the customer. The other choice is a sticker tag. Those are free. You can get as many of those as you want for as many cars as you want. The only thing different about this than the sticker, they're always on. So you're always going to be paying a toll when you're in the MnPass lane. So if you don't, if you're, 95% going to be alone all the time, it's better. You're better off to get the sticker tag. Some of the other new MnPass features that MnDOT has taken on, I've included some of the stuff that Iris already does. Iris is our internal ITS software, as you would say. It does the ramp metering, travel times that puts on the signs, variable speed limit algorithm, connectivity to all our field devices, so all our ramp meters, detectors, cameras, DMSs are all coming into Iris. Also within Iris, all the detectors, as I mentioned, provides traffic data for MnPass. What our programmers have done is created a MnPass pricing algorithm, and now Iris is taking over that from our old system. We've also developed the roadside system software with Iris. And there's kind of a synopsis on how that works. So all our field equipment comes in the roadside system software. Iris does the trip building, sends it on to the customer service center, which in turn to the back office system that bills the customer. MnPass enforcement. Currently, our current contract goes through fiscal year 2016. The State Patrol is paid on we pay the State Patrol overtime to enforce MnPass. So whether on 394 W or E, we've got a couple shifts a week where they enforce. We don't say what days they go out. We just tell them, yeah, choose a day, go out there and just have some presence. Between last contract and now, we just had a new contract signed, which is to go into effect in August of 2016, where we have a MnPass team of troopers. So that's all they're going to do is enforce MnPass. So there'll be 6 team members, 5 troopers, a lieutenant. We're going on a 3-year pilot. MSP has already determined who wants to come in to be a MnPass trooper. So they're in the process of hiring those people. So what we'll do is there'll be a couple shifts, basically what it boils down to is every segment will have an enforcement out there during the peak times. It's tough on 35E because of the left shoulder. As Brad was mentioning about 35W, the north segment from 36 up to Lexington, I'm pretty excited about this. We came how would you say it? Conclusion or joint, Paul, good enough?
Yeah, solution or
Compromise. And that was working with State Patrol, working with, our internal people. What we're going to have is an enforcement lane staggered about every mile or so along that full corridor. So on, say, direction of travel, whether it's northbound or southbound, you'll have alternating enforcement zones where you're going to have a wider shoulder. And where you have the wider shoulder on one side, on the other side you'll have a narrower shoulder. So it'll leapfrog. Not only is that good for enforcement, but also incidents. We can get people to get pulled over. We can get be a little safer for the traveling community. A little info on MnPass, which is in the brochures that we handed out. Contacts, Brad Larson, MnPass Policy and Planning, myself, and then Bobby Dalkey is our Communications Director. Any questions? Sue?
I still have an enforcement question.
Yeah.
You have the trooper out there, obviously if there's two people in the car, they know everything's okay. If there's one person, how can they tell if it's paid or not?
Okay.
They have access to that too.
Eventually, we're hopefully, right now it's visual. So if they can see a transponder in there, then they won't, pull them over. If they don't see a transponder and they see a single person, they're most apt to pull them over. There's a couple of things that we're working on internally to try and figure out what we can do to enhance that, to help the troopers out to determine whether or not they're a violator or not. Because our old system, the troopers had a PDA in their car with a couple antennas on each side of their car, and they were able to ping when a person went by. Thus, with that battery-powered transponder, they had enough signal strength. Whereas the transponders now, the signal is a lot weaker, and with the new system, they can't use that old system for enforcement. So now it's more visual. And did that? Okay. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the sticker you had mentioned? Is that like a monthly pass type situation, or is there technology in the sticker that knows when you're using the pass?
There's a little chip within the sticker that, as you drive under the antenna mounted, that's how it reads. So there's just a little RFID within that sticker.
What are the numbers on people choosing the sticker versus the switchable?
Interesting you should ask that. Right now, we were thinking when we first started the two options, we were thinking because the stickers were free, people would choose those. Right now, it's probably an 80-20 split, where 80% are going with the switchable tag, just because it gives them that option. And with the $15 one-time fee. And the other thing that's different between this and our old system is we've waived the $1.50 a month user fee. So that's no longer done. So with that, you spend $15. And the people who have existing transponders that turn in their old transponder can get the new switchable tag for nothing. Any other questions? Hearing none? Okay, thank you.
Good over, we do have a speaker gift. I gave Brad his on the way out, but here's a NCITE pint glass just to thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you very much.
And Mike, if you want to come forward, we have one for you as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. I'll turn it back over to Joe for some final announcements and closing thoughts.
I don't know about closing thoughts. All right, we do have a couple announcements. The first one is actually a guest announcement. I'm going to have John Masco from the City of St. Paul come up and give us a short message from MPWA.
Good morning. Being a longtime NCITE member and also a member of APWA and the City Engineers Association, been very involved in transportation funding. How many here think we get plenty of funding for our infrastructure? How many think that it'll be resolved this year? How many of you are aware of the organization Minnesota 2050? Okay, it's an organization that's under the umbrella of MPWA, which is a chapter of APWA, whose mission is focused in two areas. One is educating the public on the state of our infrastructure, and secondly is educating our youth to get involved in science, technology, education, or engineering and math, the STEM program. But one of the things that we've been focusing on recently, we were approached by a professor from Metro State who really thinks that they can do well with Minnesota 2050 and its purpose of educating the public about the condition of our infrastructure. A couple of years ago, we were at a conference with the Transportation Alliance, and I specifically asked the senator, are we going to do anything with funding this year? And 2014 was our big pothole season, and the response back was quite surprising. The legislators said that they're really not hearing from their constituents that it's a problem. And that's hard to believe, but it also got us into motion. But Metro State University, a college professor there, has an approach and has approached Minnesota 2050 about getting people involved in the grassroots, which is at the caucus level. How many have ever been to a caucus? Not many. That's where one of the primary purposes of caucus, you're seeing a lot of it with the presidential stuff, who's going to be our candidate, whether Republican or Democratic Party. But another purpose is to set the party platform as to what they work for, what they care about, and then the candidates kind of get judged against that platform. And that's where platforms get set, is at the caucuses. It's a chance for people at the grassroots to get in and influence that. And so that's one of the initiatives that we're planning on starting. And it's going to be a 2 to 3 year process. But one of our first goals is to get people out just to see what a caucus is about. In Minnesota, caucuses are next week, Tuesday at 7 p.m. You can go out to the state Secretary of State website, minvotes.sos.state.mn.us, and you can find your caucus location. Just pick a party, whatever party you're in or want to, and just go see what it's about and how you get involved. But it's an area that we want to focus on, and I'll send some information to Joe about, kind of what we're looking for and looking for feedback. But as an industry, we kind of know what the problem is. We also have a lot of members. When you put in MPWA, NCITE, City Engineers Association, all the consultants, we have 19 partners that are part of Minnesota 2050. If we mobilized everyone, and again, we're not a political campaign, I want to be very clear about that. Our goal is to educate. It's to get it on and get people talking about infrastructure and why it's so important to your quality of life. There's 3 videos that I think are very well done that Minnesota 2050 produced with Twin City Television. One of them actually won an Emmy for education. but they're the series State of Repair. Roads and bridges, industries of constant motion, which are rail, ports, and airports, and then liquid assets, which are sewer and water. They're very well done. They're worth looking at. There's something, they've aired on KTCA, and they've actually aired nationally. They're very good videos that just, even if you're at a party having a libation, and you want to get people talking about it, but we'd really like to encourage you to do that and get us some feedback as to what you think and how you get involved. So, if there's any questions, otherwise, it's get out, get involved, and give us some feedback. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Just a couple of quick NCITE announcements. We're still working on putting down our March section meeting, but we're targeting a MnDOT funding topic for that. Still trying to nail some of that down. We're also targeting to have a ethics training session. As most of you know, we have an ethics requirement now for renewing our professional engineering licenses. We're zeroing in on March 24th, but trying to iron out a few wrinkles with that. So that date is not set in stone, but is pretty likely. So just keep that in the back of your minds. I also wanted to just give a sneak preview about the NCITE budget. As the incoming president, one of the first things that NCITE presidents do each year is set the budget for the year. And there's been some uncertainty over the last couple of years as National ITE has transitioned to a new dues structure that has some significantly reduced rates for younger members to help bring younger professionals into the organization. Excuse me. We weren't really sure what the impact of that would be on our organization, but we're starting to see that impact, and it is quite a bit less money coming into NCITE from the national level as far as returning those dues back to us. That's not to say that that's a good or a bad thing, especially if it means that we're bringing more younger members in here, but it is, at least in the short term, meaning a lot less money coming in. In addition, looking over some of the trends that we've had recently, cost for food at these events, cost for rooms is continuing to go up, and we've held the section meeting price the same for really as long as I've been a member, which is becoming startlingly long now. We'll put together some more information coming up, but we are looking at probably having to increase, at least a small increase in the rates that we charge for these section meetings. So you will start to see that. I wanted to get that out verbally first so nobody's surprised when that happens. But just as an example, over the course of at least last year, we lost at least a few $100s on every section meeting. Rather than, we weren't even breaking even. The good news is through a lot of the good past leadership we have very healthy reserves, so we can absorb this in the short term, but we do have to kind of start to trend in a different direction instead of that steady drain on the reserves. So a big part of that, in addition to the new fees, will be we really want to start increasing attendance at these section meetings as much as we can. The more people we get here, the better chance we have of at least breaking even. So if you have, I'd just like to put out to all of you, if you have particular interesting projects that you're working on that you think would be a good fit for a section meeting presentation, by all means approach us with that. We're always looking for good ideas that are of interest to the members. And for upcoming section meetings, really try to go around your office, try to rally some coworkers to attend these. So with that, I see Maury's raising his hand. Go ahead.
I'm going to piggyback onto that. What Joel just said about interest in presenting and whatnot. I'm also the joint chair of ITS Minnesota, the NCITE committee. So we're always looking for presenters who come and talk. We have our bi-monthly meetings.
And if you're working on a project and maybe you're not sure if it's right for a section meeting, by all means start out, offer to present to one of our NCITE committees. It's a much less formal environment, good way to help bring people into the committees, which in turn helps drive attendance at these section meetings. And a lot of the presentations that happen at these section meetings started off as committee presentations. but it was determined they were right for a larger audience. So with that, we have two of our original speakers here. We promised if anybody had questions on the presentation that we'd leave a little bit more time at the end. Are there any other questions for our speakers before we adjourn? All right, well, with that, thank you all for coming. I hope to see you all at our section meeting next month, and thank you very much.